Nick Kyrgios, who's live in studio with Simon and myself.
He cocked a snook at all that. Mate, pack it in. Sitting outside a restaurant, living their best life, which is a load of old crap, because they aren't. I spent a nice afternoon having a whiskey sour with him and a Georges Shank in the Champs-Elysees about 20 years ago.
I seriously think I've overachieved.
No greater waste than a talent at that level, because I think he was a remarkable talent.
Has your behaviour held you back, Nick? I don't know if you saw it. England's under-21s, and again, as I said in the introduction, they're in another final, and they could well retain this tournament, but they could well retain the trophy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a credit to the young setups. It's a blueprint for hopefully translating these players into the full team. I mean, obviously, a couple of years ago, we were talking about the impossible job that Eddie Boothroyd was suggesting was that ultimately the main function is to get these good players in and out of the 21s into the national side, and winning things isn't the predominant focus, which I think is absolute nonsense, because winning is something that you have to, seed into the culture of a team of individuals and people. And the 21s once upon a time was a phenomenal place to be.
Yeah.
It was the gateway for the full team. You had so many different talented players in there. But obviously, as we see, there's also this bypassing of the 21s. When the best players land, they land in the national side straight away, whether that be Wayne Rooney, whether it be Jude Bellingham, or whether it be the young kid in Spain playing for the Spanish first team. But I think if you're in a tournament, whatever level that you're at, whatever age group you're at, the mindset should be to win it. And of course, what it does then is it creates a temperature and a culture of why can't that translate? Because there is a difference between playing at a certain level of football and then playing in the ultimate full level of world football. But these are good things. This is a good, healthy barometer of things that are going well within the confines of our setups.
Yes.
And so we should take some stock from it.
You're right, though. We had an interesting conversation with Martin and Neil. I'll get to that, about why success at this level doesn't necessarily translate to the senior level. But the fact of the matter is England's under-21s with Harvey Elliott and others are in the final again. They will now face Germany in Saturday's final after their 3-0 win over France. The last time, after the Germans 3-0 win over the French, the last time the England under-21s reached two consecutive finals was 41 years ago. Can you believe that? Dave Sexton. Do you remember Dave Sexton, Simon?
I mentioned him the other day in conjunction with Martin O'Neill.
Yeah.
So it shows you that actually when you look at it, because I was thinking as I was saying, this is a good indicator, it's a good barometer, and I was thinking to myself, but back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, when our 21s doing quite well, and I'm thinking that in the back of my mind, and now you're reinforcing that by saying
They were indeed.
And yet we had not particularly a great national side again.
Well, exactly. So it's a kind of mirror image. So is this generation showing signs that they can do what their senior counterparts have struggled to do, and that is go over the line? Lee Carsley's delighted, and well done to him, because the under-21s are showing the absolute quality that exists within that squad.
A lot of the teams are affected by the Club World Cup. We've tried not to make any excuses of the players that aren't here and tried to really push and value the players that are here. We're very lucky, like you say there, with the amount of players that we've got available to us. We've got so much quality, but more importantly, we've got a squad that believe that they can win. Which there's not a lot of hope. There's more belief, which is important to, if we're going to go that one step more, which is generally the hardest step now, is getting over the line. But I'm so proud of them, and hopefully you've enjoyed watching us during this tournament. We said in St George's that it may be a bit clunky to start with, but the team would get better as we went on, and they've definitely showed that.
I think it was the final of the Virtue Trophy. It was Darren McAntony's Peterborough against Birmingham. I was chatting to Lee, and he's a good lad, and I like him. After falling out of the running, Simon, during his brief interim spell, I wonder how much might the Euros success put Lee back into the FA and the fans thinking post the World Cup
For the main job.
Yeah.
Well, there was always that thought process, wasn't there? I mean, he stepped up into an environment that I didn't think he was prepared for. I didn't think he was a big part of the England manager's job, be it right or be it wrong, is communication. Because, we're not talking about a domestic manager that's managing players on a day-to-day basis. We're talking about a manager that's picking players, trying to set them up.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time communicating messages and interacting with the media. And he didn't come out of that the way that you would anticipate that someone that was capable of managing England would do. But putting him there, I don't know how good a coach he is or he isn't, right? I'm assuming that he's a relatively reasonable coach, otherwise he wouldn't be in the position that he's in.
Yeah.
Now, does that translate to being the England manager? Well, it's translated in other countries when you've seen youth managers coming through and being put into control of the national side, specifically and explicitly the Spanish. And so you'd like to think that that was something that was achievable. I can't help but be in the mindset, and whether it's a limited mindset on my part, that you put winners in to win. And winning at one level, if you win at the big levels, if you step out of a domestic game having been a really successful manager and go into the international field, you take that aura, you take that level of communication which concentrates the minds of the players very quickly with you, even if you're not working on a domestic level. So taking someone from a setup that's youth level, successful in its own right, and then translating into a different space where it really hasn't operated, it really hasn't managed in, is always an element of risk.
Yeah.
And specifically with a culture, and I hate to say it, and I'm not being mean-spirited, the culture of English players and the English game, it to me, it's often different than the culture in other countries. So it makes it easier for maybe a youth team coach to step up in Spain and manage the national side than it might do in this country. But if he goes through this curve of having stuck his head above the parapet, got it smacked about a little bit and made observations about what anthems he should sing and how he sang and the way that he handled it. And he was under arousing, wasn't he? When you listen to Lee Carsley, you didn't come out of that feeling that you were in the hands of someone that knew precisely what he was doing. And that was his style. Now, going back to the 21s, having seen that, watching England, and if the succession programme is to revisit it again in a year's time, we don't know. If Tuchel wins the World Cup, who knows right, what happens in that space? But again, I mean, what you can say in the here and now is that the 21s win the European Championships, then Lee Carsley is doing what he's supposed to do as the 21s manager. And then, of course, after that, then you've got to say which one of his players are going to be candidates. You know, Liam Delap would have been in the 21s if Chelsea hadn't called him.
Right.
And how much, again, the other part of it is how much of this is really down to the clubs. When we talk about the talent of footballers now, the domestic clubs are producing such a highbrow level of players that the international setup is almost getting them ready to go, just plug and play.
Sure. I would have thought England fans, Simon, would want to hear from the senior players what Harvey Elliott is saying about the under-21s. We can take on any team. The fear isn't there. There is no fear. It's just about us going out and delivering what we are doing. And when it gets to that...
Oh, to be fair, let's compare eggs with eggs.
Have no fear.
To be fair, that's precisely what Kyle Walker was saying in Qatar. And I remember being so impressed with Kyle Walker in the manner that he handled the media and suggesting that England had no fear of anybody, that they could win these games.
Simon, you and I were in Germany for 5 weeks. England showed a bit of stage fright now and again.
No, they showed a bit of victim complex, is what they showed, because or whether they decided to find that as a motive. Some people need something to rub up against, to have some sort of extra emphasis on what they're doing. The crying and the lack of resilience from the England players because people dared to criticise them. The media isn't there to write a PR section. I have my issues with certain sections of the media that go down a narrative and don't actually research it. But the fact of the matter is, you didn't have to research how England were playing in the Euros, and you're not supposed to be cheerleaders. You are supposed to support your country. You are supposed to highlight the best parts of it and stop worrying about self-flagellating.
Yeah.
But the fact that the England setup enabled a sort of whining victim culture that was, sorry, with due respect, it was exemplified by Jude Bellingham's response a few times.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of didn't like something that you popped up and saw.
I met him outside the lift. Yeah.
And the victim complex is developed. It's not a winning mentality. But also I understand that if it galvanises people, then it may well be an ingredient. But going to the point, in the 2022 World Cup, people like Kyle Walker were robust. They were like, we're not frightened of anybody.
Yeah.
In this instance, the team wasn't playing well, and the culture of the whole tournament was slightly different.
Yeah. Interestingly, yesterday, elsewhere, it was a rise Sir Gareth. He became just the 7th football manager to be given the honour of a knighthood. We've had Sir Alf Ramsey, Sir Matt Busby, Sir Alex, of course, Sir Bobby Robson, Sir Kenny Dalglish, Sir Walter Winterbottom, now Sir Gareth. Was he due it? Does the cap fit?
By modern day standards, probably. If you read that list out again, I don't know what Walter Winterbottom won, right? But I do know that every other one of those managers won something.
Right.
So with that in mind, what we gave was a peerage for strong participation. And if that is what we revere and that's what we suggest in society, I mean, obviously Gareth Southgate, the country was behind them in the 2021 or the 2020, which carried over to 21 Euros.
Yeah.
They were behind them in the 2022 World Cup. The low standards that we set in 2016 in Iceland were picked up by Southgate and taken to a different level. And so if that means that you give somebody a peerage for that, And if that's a standard that you look across the other peerages that are given in sport. So Andy Murray, if I am correct, he won Wimbledon. So Steve Redgrave, I think he won Olympic golds.
Yeah.
And I can go on.
Winners.
I can suspect.
Winners. Will Gareth's strong period of strong participation stand the test of time?
Well, the problem with that situation is that once the expectation started to increase on the England side, the performances started to slightly diminish. And the World Cup wasn't, we got to the quarterfinals against the French and should have taken that game. I think we should have beaten the French. I think there was an opportunity there.
Sure.
And we didn't play well during that tournament. We were dreadful against the US. I remember sitting with you in Qatar watching his game thinking it was dreadful. And so what happened was that when Gareth came in, expectation was at rock bottom. And even the media had given up. They didn't even bother, criticising him because they weren't worth criticising.
Yeah.
And Gareth took it from that position after Sam and rebuilt it inch by inch, yard by yard. And of course, we got to the semi-finals of the World Cup in 2018 against Croatia. Missed an opportunity there, but everyone was on side. We're going in the right direction. Then we get to the European Championships, and the expectation levels are up. And then, of course, we're hearing the backstory of how everyone's getting on together. Gareth's very media-facing, very affable, very nice bloke. So what is his legacy? His legacy was that we got a better outcome against lesser opposition in tournaments that previously we might not have done, but we didn't win anything. Now, Tuchel has dismantled some of that because, with due respect to what Tuchel said when he came through the door, he cocked a snook at all that.
Right.
He said no identity, no this, no that. So what is the legacy? The legacy is that I think Gareth Southgate is a good statesman. I think he's a thoroughly decent human being. I think he had a very decent football career, and he's done decent things for England as a manager. And when you listen to Gareth Southgate, you speak to him, you admire him as a bloke.
Yeah.
But in the brutal business of winning, which at the end of the day sport becomes about, I'd rather have a Mourinho or a Conte, as much as I dislike Conte for the way he operates, in a room, knowing that I've got a tiger by the tail, but there's a distinct possibility I'll win, than a very nice statesman that will never offend anybody.
Okay. Sir Gareth, good morning. A lot to get through. Nick Kyrgios live in about 15 minutes. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes. Already the messages are coming in. Many of you want me to ask our studio guest a question or two about himself, about the world of tennis, about where it's going, etc., etc. And I'm only too happy to do that. 81089 if you want to send me a message or two. Simon's alongside me. Simon Jordan, of course, known for having owned a top football club here in England, but is also a very, very big tennis fan. And I'm delighted to say the two of us have become the three of us, because joining us live in studio this morning is top player, top Aussie, top man, Nick Kyrgios is with us. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you? I
tried to give you the big introduction, but you don't really need one.
I mean, look, I've had a few big introductions, but I actually like it when it's just nice and calm. To be
brilliant,
honest. Yeah,
brilliant. Well, we're nice and calm having you in here today. You were saying to me earlier, Simon, how much you're looking forward to this, and we'll see how it goes. But you're anticipating a good old chat over the next hour with Nick.
Well, I mean, at least from perception point of view, he's an intriguing character, isn't he?
Yeah.
A remarkably talented tennis player that I think probably should have done more with his game.
Mm-hmm.
But notwithstanding that, when he speaks, he says the things that he speaks. He says the things that he thinks. Now, some people won't like him, and there's been things that he said that I think, mate, pack it in. But they're characters, and the world's not got enough of them.
Well, exactly. I don't want to start in a negative, but I'll start about you and injuries.
Yep.
I mean, less than a week out, Nick, from Wimbledon. You're no stranger to SW19 and the grass courts, but injuries have been an issue for you in recent times, and you won't be playing next week. So where are you at the moment? Because we want to see you out there.
Yeah, I mean, I had a bit of a knee injury maybe like 15 days ago, and obviously it was heartbreaking because Wimbledon's my favourite event, and it's pretty much all I played for, to be honest. Every year it's circled in the calendar. So it's heartbreaking not playing, but even just being around the event, and I'm doing a lot of work for the media and doing a lot of exciting things, and I still feel like I can give a lot to the game of tennis. Even if I'm not playing, I can analyse it, commentate on it, and I really just enjoy being around it these couple of weeks.
I love the fact he's doing a lot for the media. He says, how about this? I didn't know this, Simon. Earlier this week, you recorded a live episode of your podcast, Good Trouble, in front of an audience at Wimbledon. Previous episodes, Nick has hosted the likes of Piers Morgan, we know him, Mike Tyson, we know him. John McEnroe, we know him. I mean, in actual fact, McEnroe's one of your faves, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And I spent a nice afternoon having a whiskey sour with him and a Georges Shank in the Champs-Elysees about 20 years ago, a little bit longer than that. He's one of my favourite players. I think he's the most gifted player that ever walked a tennis court, quite frankly.
Yeah. How did those go?
Yeah, me and John definitely share some similarities on the court. We definitely are a bit hot-headed. But yeah, John's an amazing guy, and he's been a captain for the Laver Cup, and I've played the Laver Cup a couple times with him, and I was picking his brains and learning a lot of things on the court with him, and I'm afraid to say I've never had a drink with him, where I would love to. I think we would go.
But he said of you, didn't he, once, that you were the most talented player that he'd seen in 10 years, but he had a fear that you might blow it.
Yeah, I guess so. I look back at where I came from, where I grew up, and how athletically gifted I was as a kid. I was incredibly overweight. And I look back at the history of my parents and what they did to sacrifice, and I look back on my career, and I say I've overachieved, to be honest, where I came from. So it's all about perspective. I think that I played the game since I was 7 years old. I did work incredibly hard, and this whole journey has been an amazing one. Just being here with you guys, talking, doing my live, my good trouble with all these amazing guests. Being on centre court of Wimbledon. It's I look at it in my eyes like I've overachieved. See, I'm intrigued by that, Nick. When did it start for you? How did it start for you? This journey that you're talking about. I played basketball growing up, and then at 14, my parents kind of said, you have to give it away. We're going to put all the eggs in the tennis basket, and I guess that was our way out, and they had incredible faith in me that I was going to, I guess, make it to the top level. And I didn't really like tennis, to be honest. I didn't fit in. I didn't really enjoy the people that were involved with tennis. And I just kept playing, and they believed in me, and here we are, and it's just all been a bonus, to be honest.
Why did you not fit in? Who did you not enjoy?
I guess, when I came on the scene, I played Rafa Nadal when I was 19, and I beat him at Wimbledon, and my life changed forever. And I think I wasn't completely ready to take the responsibility of being a role model and being a good role model at that age. I didn't even, I was just finishing school, still lived at home with my parents. I don't know if I was ready to take on all this. But now, being 30, I think I've learned, and I understand, a lot of people look up to me, and it's important to be a good example. So I do my best now. Do you think sports stars like you should be role models? Yeah, I think it comes with the territory. I mean, whether at 19 I was ready to do it, but now for sure I look at all the kids that look up to me, and it's powerful what we can do for the younger generation. We don't give up on dreams, and that's why they love athletes so much, because one day they could be in our position, and it took me a while to understand that, but now I do.
I think it's unfair on them. I think having had young footballers and young talented footballers and watching them develop.
You think it asks too much of them?
Well, I think there's a tennis player, he's a young man, obviously a young footballer, and I think there's a way that they should behave, and the people around them should encourage them to behave, but it also should be some latitude. If you're 19 years of age and you don't know your arse from your elbow, and you're finding your way to understand that, then why should you be judged by a set of standards? That's not fair. It's not right. Role models should be parents and people of that shape and description. Professional sports people should be people that you admire and want to be like them as a tennis player. Yeah. But what he wears off a tennis court and what he does in his private life is none of my business. And I accept the world that we live in now, and so does he, which is that the social media world and the digital world takes people into... Once upon a time, you read about restaurants in a newspaper. Now you can see people posing outside a restaurant, living their best life, which is a load of old crap, because they aren't. And so it puts a level of expectation on guys like this, which I think is unfair. But also, you want to be in the big league. These are the rules of the jungle, I suspect, to some extent.
You said it. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, it is unfair, I think, when we're a bit younger. And then, social media, I mean, makes things so accessible. Everyone's, recording or taking pictures. We have to be so careful with what we do. So,
you think too much pressure was maybe heaped upon you too early? I mean, what do you think the perception is of Nick Kyrgios? People's perception out there.
Honestly, I don't really... I mean, to be honest, I don't really care anymore. I think earlier on in my career, I did care. I did care to please everyone and try and be liked by everyone, but now I honestly don't really care. I understand there's going to be people who enjoy the way I go about things, and there are going to be people that I can never ever get on my side. So now I just enjoy it all. But pressure, I don't know if I feel the pressure anymore. I'm in an incredible part of my life. I'm healthy. I get to meet amazing people. I travel the world doing what I love. So I don't think I feel any pressure.
Well, repackage it the other way then. Not what you think people think of you. What would you like people to think of you?
I think the people that know me and have had a conversation with me and really understand me to my core, I'm incredibly caring, and I'm two different people. Like on the court, I don't know, I turn into this like weird, competitive, hot-headed person, which I don't necessarily like all the time, but off the court, I don't think I'm that person. And I think that's what people get caught up with. They see this like other person, they just assume like I'm like that all the time, which I'm not.
Messages flying in here, Nick, and you've hardly been on for more than a few minutes. There's Spence loving this. Nick is authentic, and that's all that anybody should want. Nick Kyrgios, top tennis player, top man, is with us here in studio. That doesn't mean that Thursday isn't Thursday, though. Later on, we'll be talking boxing. Spencer Oliver will be with us. And, of course, Daniel Dubois, Alexander Usyk getting ever closer. We look forward to that. Do you like your boxing, Nick? Do you watch that?
I do like my boxing. I do watch a bit of the UFC as well. I'm actually good friends with Volkanovski. Back in Australia, so yeah, I mean, I try and keep up with it as much as I can.
Sure thing. I mentioned the messages that are coming in, 81089, and you're welcome to send in any message you like, and I'll put it to Nick, and Simon and Nick can discuss whatever you want me to throw at the two of them. There is one from Michael. All right, Michael, I'll do it. Be brave, Jim. Ask Nick, does he not regret his at times pathetic attitude on court, which probably cost him winning a Grand Slam? Actually, that's from Michael in Birmingham.
I appreciate the nice words, Michael. No, I don't regret it because, there's no guarantee that I would have won a Grand Slam. At the end of the day, I was pretty close. I was 2 sets away at Wimbledon, and I lost to the greatest of all time, Novak Djokovic. But look, would I change some of my behaviour? Of course. Do I condone it? No, obviously I don't condone my behaviour all the time, but I can't change it. I think that it made me who I am today, to be honest. I know it's cliche to say, but you take one little block down of my journey and it all falls apart. So I don't regret anything. I'm here right now with two good-looking roosters chatting about some sport, and I'm living a good life. So no, I don't regret anything.
Is there a fine balance, Nick, between entertainment and decorum on court?
Yeah, I think that was the balance that I struggled to find sometimes in my tennis. I wanted to go out there and give people a show, whether it was good or bad. I wanted, someone in the crowd to go home and say, wow, I'm never going to forget that moment in my entire life. And sometimes that got in the way of me winning. But at the end of the day, I think everyone can admit when they came to watch my matches, it was unpredictable and they had a good show.
I'm looking back at a comment of yours, Simon. So let's drop Simon in.
Let's do it.
In 2022,
yes,
you branded Nick a cheat. Do you remember this?
Tell me.
I think he's a cheat. I think he cheats. The way he operates on the court is cheating. There's a code of conduct you expect from players. It's nothing to do with blue ribbon events because it's Wimbledon and everybody talks about strawberries and cream.
Yes.
I think there's a distraction value to complain after every shot and to operate the way he does. I think it's a form of cheating. Now, would you like me to give you the shovel and you can dig your way out of that one?
No, not really. Everything has nuance and context, and I do. I think McEnroe at times. I mean, I'm sure Jimmy Connors would think that in terms of the distraction that McEnroe used to bring to games, to be able to unseat the opponents. 100%. Now, whether that's a lack of control on his part or whether it's a deliberate tactic is a different matter. And the context of the conversation, I don't know what the game was, whether it was against Tsitsipas or whoever it was against, I don't know. But I looked at it and said, pack it in.
Was it a deliberate?
Pack it in.
Was it a tactic that was deliberate on your part?
Well, he's bang on because sometimes, I look at, Novak, Nadal or Federer, like how was I supposed to beat these guys in a fair and square, clean battle? It was never going to happen. So I had to figure out other ways, I've knocked over.
Although you did beat them.
I know, but I've knocked over Nadal's, water bottles. You know how he puts it, like I knocked it over before. I've was talking to myself every change of end against Federer, trying to get these guys maybe thinking something different. Because if I tried to go out there and be well behaved, I was never going to beat them. So I do try and bring them back to, I guess, my level, the human level, because these guys are gods.
So it was like sledging in tennis.
Well, it's not sledging, but it's just trying to do something different that they haven't experienced before. And maybe I needed a little bit more of that in the final of Wimbledon, but I tried to be too well behaved and I didn't win.
See, you're smiling. You love this, don't you?
Yeah, it's a balance, isn't it? Because I think you've got to be resilient. Yeah. I think if the opponents, I thought when he had a go at Tsitsipas, I thought Tsitsipas was a fanny. I thought he whined about it,
exactly.
Cried like a baby,
and it worked.
And I thought, pack it in. You've got to have some resilience. Push back, give it back to him. But by the same token, I'm thinking your talent can beat it. You don't need to disrupt it. He's saying he does.
Yeah.
So I do. And as much as I adored McEnroe, because I just loved McEnroe, everything about McEnroe and what he did for the game and the talent that he had. But there were times when even I thought at the time, pack it in.
A bit much.
A bit much.
Defaulting at the Italian Open in 2019 against Casper Ruud when you threw a chair across the court. I'll get to 2022, why not? And again, Simon, I'll drop you in it. It was a standout year for you.
Yep.
US Open quarterfinal, Wimbledon final, mate. I mean, God. But you didn't feel you got the credit you deserved in your own country, claiming that you were shown, quotes, no respect at all after being overlooked for the John Newcombe medal in favour of Ash Barty. You then shared a graphic comparing the two players' achievements in 22 on your Instagram story, captioning the shot, lol, no respect at all, I don't give a F.
Yep.
We covered that in the show at the time. So, Nick, before you come in, this was Simon's take at the time.
Yep.
He has a remarkable mercurial talent but doesn't actually win very much. So whilst he's got this remarkable talent, I think you disrespect him because he disrespects himself with the waste of his talent at times. And then you add in the puerility of some of his behaviour. McEnroe was an awful behaviour on the court, but he won. So people began to get this begrudging respect because his achievements superseded his outbursts. Ilie Nastase, the same. This guy doesn't really win. And then you look at some of the behaviour on the during Wimbledon this year, and some of the observations, calling people in the crowd drunk and making observations about people's behaviour. Some of it I think is fair play, and some of it I think chapeau, well done you for calling it out for what it is. And other times I think you are a silly little brat that has nothing to say. You don't act like an adult, you act like a child. But I do think from a talent point of view, he's a remarkable talent, which makes his inability to have done anything particularly formidable on a tennis court actually quite disappointing.
I wish everybody listening and watching on YouTube could see Nick's reaction to that.
Because it's like, there was a compliment, then back down, then it was like a roller coaster. It's so funny. No, I love it. I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I've won a little bit. Like, I've won more than I've lost, that's for sure.
I think your talent could have won more.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
I mean, has your behaviour held you back, Nick? Is that the bottom line question? I know nobody wants you to be any different, mate. You are you, and we love you for it.
Yeah. But
at times, you look back and think, well, I can't change it. So that's what happened, and that's what happened. But is there a degree of regret at times?
Honestly, I think how much I've struggled mentally throughout my career. And just with everything, I seriously think I've overachieved. Like, I'm such a normal guy, and I'm so normal that I look at some of the things I've done in this sport and I still can't believe, how much I've done. I was walking through, the hallways of Wimbledon with Novak behind me, and there's guards there, and I was looking around, I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. And so I just, maybe I could have done better, but at the same time,
that's the component part that observers like me can't comment on. I look at his talent. For me, there's no greater waste than a talent at that level, because I think he was a remarkable talent.
Yeah.
But the component part of mentality, absolutely. But my observation, which is blunt and to the point, is when you've got this level of talent, you should be winning things, and you have the capacity to win it. So why aren't you winning it? But I spent time with Federer and watched him. I spent time with Novak Djokovic because his brother lived next door to me in Marbella.
Yeah.
And I see their mentality. And so one part I can't comment on is the mentality. Now, what he's doing is walking you backwards into his mentality, saying, I don't think I should have been here. Yeah. If I was in his camp as his manager, I'd be going, yes, you damn well should, son. You should be there more.
Nick, the mental side of it, and you've had your struggles with that. How much does that come from the pressures of the sport?
Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, social media, when I was a 19, 20-year-old, there was a lot of negativity coming my way early on in my career, and I think I struggled with that. I took it very personal, and it did affect my mental health and just how I thought about myself. I'd wake up and I would start believing some of these comments, and I was like, maybe I am a waste of talent, and maybe I did start believing it. And then it took me a while to get over it and get to this point of having thick skin and growing up through it, but it wasn't easy. And that's
coaches. What are they saying to you? Who's in and around you?
No, I have an incredible team now.
Yeah.
An incredible team.
But back then,
I was changing coaches here and there. I was changing management, and it was a bit loose, and I didn't really have a tight knit team that I do now.
Yeah.
And I'm very close to my family now, so Now I take it with a grain of salt, and I
You're
don't.
wiser and older now, aren't you?
Exactly. But yeah.
Am I right, Nick? And I'm sure you'll be able to tell me if I'm not or if I am. You spent a night in a psychiatric ward.
Yeah, that
when you
was
were playing.
Yeah,
at Wimbledon,
2019. Yeah, I went there and then I had to play Nadal.
Was there a worry about you self-harming?
Yeah, it was everything. At the time, I had someone in my team that wasn't. He's not in my team at the moment, but he was concerned about my behaviour, and yeah, I went there, and then I was told to try and stay overnight and do all that, but I had to play Nadal the next day. So I couldn't really.
You were playing Nadal the next day.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that experience like, been in there?
It was okay. I mean, it was good. Like, I just had to do a couple things that, a couple questionnaires, and then they were just kind of observing me and doing that. But I had to go play Nadal the next day, so I couldn't really,
How did you get on?
I lost in 4 sets.
Yeah.
I had chances though.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good match.
I really like you, Nick, but I'll put this to you, mate. Were you wearing compression sleeves?
Yep.
To hide the scars?
Yeah.
That you'd inflicted upon yourself?
Yeah, I had to wear an arm sleeve. I didn't want to go out on centre court at Wimbledon, having all those kind of things on my arm. But yeah, I just wore an arm sleeve. I look back at those times, that was like 6 years ago, and I look back, and that's what I'm saying. I think sitting here now and then having that year in 2022 from that, I mean, I'm pretty proud of myself and how resilient I was to get out of that and still continue and reach some highs of the sport as well.
Oh, mate, I think you're so right to be proud of yourself.
Yeah.
I think you'll be an inspiration to many of our listeners today, Nick, who maybe take to heart, Simon, what they see about themselves on social media. This fellow always says to me, power through it, be robust. And you're right, Simon. You've always had that, mate.
Yeah.
But it's not that easy for a lot of people, Nick. And we'll maybe get into the social media aspect of everything. You're sensational, mate. It's great having you on board this morning. The EFL fixtures for the upcoming season have been released, and as you know by now, of course you do, talkSPORT is the home of the EFL, and we have more live football on national radio than ever before. Let's hear about it right now.
The EFL is back on the talkSPORT network. It's bigger and better than ever before.
Back to Ayew, hits it well! 2-0 to Leicester City. Archer goes for goal. He scored! Cameron Archer gives Southampton an unlikely lead.
Into the far post, he's headed down and into the net. Brilliant header by George Hurst. He celebrates wildly in front of the Ipswich fans.
Gotta love the EFL. And for the first time since 1982, Wrexham are into the Championship.
Birmingham City have been promoted to the Championship for the first time of asking. Davies dancing his way through, gets the shot away, and Tom Davies has scored for Sheffield United.
Van White with the cross right there to attack, and it's in. And Coventry have the goal that their efforts deserve.
What brilliant entertainment here on your home of the EFL, the talkSPORT network.
So now we know who plays who from Friday the 8th of August and onwards. I'm delighted. My colleague here at talkSPORT, one-time Sky colleague, of course, Sam Matterface joins us live. Sam, good afternoon. What catches the eye?
Very good afternoon to you, Jim. Yes, the EFL gets underway actually in just 36 days with League One and League Two starting on the first weekend of August, followed by a week later those championship fixtures that you were referring to. Luton and Wimbledon kicking off the new EFL season. 8 o'clock, talkSPORT 2, the first weekend of the campaign. The same weekend will bring you Cardiff, Peterborough and Stockport Bolton on the home of the EFL. But the first championship game of the brand new season, Friday, the 8th of August, live on talkSPORT, newly promoted Birmingham at St Andrews take on relegated Ipswich Town, live on talkSPORT as we broadcast over 140 games from the EFL this season as we bring you more games than ever before. And it's a fascinating first weekend of the season, Jim. Leicester versus Sheffield Wednesday is the big 4:30 game on Sunday afternoon. We'll have that one for you as well. Southampton are in the lunchtime slot. Also on the Saturday, they welcome Wrexham, newly promoted Wrexham in the Championship for the first time since 1982. Both those games will be on the network with Southampton Wrexham on talkSPORT 12:30 on the first Saturday of the season. Just to mark your card, a couple of the big derbies that really have caught the eye already. We don't have to wait too long before we see our first South Coast derby of the season. You know, I'm particularly interested in that. Southampton against Portsmouth, September the 13th, the weekend of September November the 13th. A tasty one for Will Still, who's got a tough start to life at St Mary's with Wrexham, Ipswich, Pompey, and then Middlesbrough and Sheffield United to come straight off the bat. November is the first time we see the first Still City derby at Hillsborough, who's going to be in charge by then, with the return at Bramall Lane in February. Ipswich face Norwich in the Old Farm game. That's October the 4th. So lots of exciting fixtures to come.
Very good. Sam, thank you for that. Stay with us. I'm interested, Simon, in your thoughts on the three relegated teams, Leicester, Southampton and Ipswich. We're going to be hearing from Mark Ashton, who I know, the chief exec of Ipswich later on. But how do you think they're going to get going in that one? Because, I mean, it's a brutal division.
Well, they've been there before, and so they know what they're going into. They went through it pretty quickly first time round, didn't they? They've retained their manager, and I think and being down there, myself and Spencer were down there for the boxing, you could see the reaction from the Ipswich fans towards Kieran McKenna. He's still hero worshipped.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've lost Liam Delap, but they're in good shape. They've got a good chairman in Mark Ashton. He came in the studio, didn't he, in January, talking about the fact they've got themselves funded. I mean, it's an interesting one. They've gone for the Hollywood setup, with Birmingham coming up because all the furore around Tom Brady and the fact that they spent a lot of money in the League One last year. It's a good yardstick. It's a good citer for Birmingham. But of the relegated sides, you'd think that Ipswich probably in the best situation. Southampton were dreadful last season and don't go down with any credit. I mean, none of them really go down with much credit, but Ipswich went down with the most credit.
Yeah.
Leicester, seem to be all over the place with PSR, and they've got a manager they're likely to get rid of, and they're doing it in a way that ultimately enables them to take the cost implications of it and dump it into next year's PSR, because that's how Leicester do. They tap dance around everything at this moment in time. So I would think that it's really, obviously, having been relegated, you want the team to start as it means to go on, and getting a start.
Exactly.
It's important.
Yeah.
It's not fundamentally the defining aspect.
Yeah.
But Ipswich versus Birmingham, first game of the season, it's a great game for the league. I mean, the thing about the EFL fixtures every year they came out with me was that I'm playing against all the teams I don't want to play against.
But if you're Ipswich and if you're Southampton, Simon, do you want the new boys? Do you want Wrexham at St Andrews?
You don't care. You take them.
Do you want Ipswich at Birmingham?
You take them as you come. I remember going into the dressing room after we got beaten the last game of the season, got relegated with 3 minutes to go, and said to the players after the game, "Listen, how does this feel? Crap? Does it feel crap? Whoever's in this dressing room, Victor, whatever else. Here's the thing: we take it out on the side that plays this first game of the season. The first game of the season was a newly promoted Luton. At home, we lost 3-1. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's about what the players think and what they're prepared for. And you play against the opposition you play against.
Sam, any headline you want to throw as regards Leagues 1 and 2?
Well, I think before we get to that, let's just talk a little bit about Leicester and Ipswich, because Simon's right. The Championship is so tricky. You never really know what you're going to get week to week, let alone when it comes to the first game of the season. I don't think I'd really want to be going to St Andrews opening night under the lights after Birmingham have just been promoted, and with all of the backing that they've had in the last few years. I think that, interestingly for Ipswich, they then have a game very quickly against Derby County, one against Southampton in the next couple of weeks as well, which is, I suppose, a yardstick of where they will be. They'll be able to measure themselves against Southampton. Leicester, we already mentioned, likely to be under new management. We don't even know what's happening there at the moment. They start at home, then 2 tricky away games at Preston, and newly promoted Charlton, who are back in the Championship. They look like they've got a tough Christmas and New Year period. Sheffield United, now with Ruben Selles in charge instead of Chris Wilder, they start with a home game against Bristol City. They've got Gerhard Struber in place now. Then the Blades go to Swansea under Alan Sheehan. So many new managers in the Championship this season. Coventry, big season for Frank Lampard. Coventry have gone really close last season. Doug King's investment, Frank Lampard's astute management. They start at home with a match against another team with a new manager in Hull City. Sergei Yakirovich is in charge there now. Middlesbrough have got Rob Edwards, obviously, and they're alone in the northeast now. The nearest rival is probably Hull City. He starts, Rob Edwards, with Swansea and Millwall, and he faces a trip to his old club, Watford, in November. Ryan Mason is in at West Brom. They start the season at home to Blackburn. But they look as if they've got a particularly tough end to the campaign to me. As we know, there'll be a lot of fixture changes because of TV scheduling. The good news for EFL fans, though, and I like this, is that by Thursday, July the 3rd, we'll know all of the fixtures up until the end of September. And then before the season starts, we'll have all of the broadcast selections up until January the 10th, which I think is great news for supporters trying to plan their weekends. You mentioned League 1 and 2. Tom Cleverley in at Plymouth. Lee Grant in at Huddersfield, Plymouth at home to Barnsley on the opening weekend, Huddersfield at home to Orient, Oldham back in the in the Premier League for the first time after promotion from the National League. 34 years since their last promotion. They're away at MK Dons that they finished the season with a big home match against Accrington Stanley. And Barnet back in the Football League for the first time since 2018. They start with a home game against Fleetwood.
Sam, terrific stuff. Before you leave us, Sam, stay with us because news is coming in to me. Liverpool fans will be interested in this. Liverpool, Simon, have completed the signing of Milos Kyrgios from Bournemouth. 40 million quid. Their fourth signing of the summer. So Liverpool, busy and busy all the time, right up until the start of the season, it looks.
Build from positions of strength. And that's why the argument about Harvey Elliott becomes relevant when we talk about his future. He played 18 games under Slot last year, and the previous 3 seasons has been playing 30 games a year under Klopp. So there's been some changes. Here is a player coming in to either push Andy Robertson out or push him to new levels.
Yeah. Sam, let me throw this at you. This probably is like a new signing for Arsenal. Arsenal fans, bit of news for you this lunchtime. Miles Lewis-Skelly has signed a new deal which keeps him at the club until 2030, Sam. Miles Lewis-Skelly, debut season.
Just looking at that, he had a brilliant season, didn't he? And just noticed that has dropped in the last couple of minutes on the Arsenal website as well. They're just saying now that he has signed a new contract, which is brilliant for him and brilliant for Arsenal, really, as well. Howling graduate, now an England international, scored on his debut. The 18-year-old definitely enjoying a breakthrough season last campaign. He joined the club as an 8-year-old, went on to play an instrumental role in each of the age group teams. He rose to prominence during the 2022-23 season when he scored a late winner for the under-18s in a memorable FA Youth Cup semi-final against Manchester City. And then 6 months later, he's signing a new professional contract, just turning 17, and he ends up making 39 first-team appearances in all competitions after making his debut in that 2-2 draw against Manchester City. No doubt that 2024-25 was a breakthrough season for Miles Lewis-Skelly, and I think, Arsenal fans will be absolutely delighted that he's committed his future to the club because he's a terrific prospect. He's played really well both for club and international teams over the course of the last year. And it's one of the success stories, another of the success stories from the Howland Academy.
Sam, thank you very much indeed. Best in the business, Sam Matterface. As you know by now, talkSPORT, the home of the EFL, and we have more live football on national radio than ever before. The EFL fixtures released this lunchtime. We now know who plays who in the EFL in the upcoming season. We certainly know what kicks it all off as far as the championship is concerned. And on Friday, August the 8th, Friday evening, it's St Andrews. It's the new boys, Birmingham City, up against Ipswich Town, who find themselves back in the championship, having been in the Premier League last season. It's live on talkSPORT, 8 o'clock. I'm delighted to say this lunchtime, Simon. Ipswich Town chairman Mark Ashton joins us live. Mark, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good to speak to you, mate. Thanks for joining us. Life back in the championship. Briefly, Mark, how do you reflect on last season?
Brutal, really brutal. Toughest league in the world, having been out of it as a club for over 20 years. Time was our enemy. I think as a club, we did ourselves proud. We tried to do it the right way, but ultimately fell short. But we're still rebuilding this incredible football club and fully looking forward to what's going to be a really tough championship season ahead.
Do you think the gap between the likes of the Championship and the Premier League, did you think it was as big as you might have expected or bigger?
No, I think it's what we expected. I think it's really tough. Even the clubs, Leicester and Southampton, they were on parachute payments. They'd been in the Premier League recently, found it really tough and ultimately couldn't stay in there. For a club like us that have been out for so long, the gap's even bigger. So it's tough, but it's the biggest and best league in the world for a reason, and we've got to find a way around that. We want to get back to the Premier League as quickly as we can, and we want to try and stay there. But you can't underestimate the Championship. This league is tough.
The big question will always reverberate around Kieran. And when I spoke to him, he was very positive. And I saw the reaction because all the Ipswich Town fans were in there cheering Fabio. And when Kieran came up on the screen, bang, the hero status is still there. So Is that situation fully under control in terms of Kieran being in situ, running the club for the season and getting the outcomes that you want?
Yes, absolutely. I think Kieran and I talk on a daily basis. Look, I gave him his opportunity when we took him from Manchester United, and rightly so, he took it with two hands and he's done extremely well. With success brings challenges. He's been coveted. We sat down right at the end of the season at my house one night. We looked each other in the eye and we said, "Are we in? Are you in for this, Kieran?" And he was very clear, "Absolutely, Mark. We've got a job to do. I want to take us back up." There's always going to be noise around him, but there also has to be a bond of trust. And he's looked me in the eye and said, "I'm in. I want to rebuild this football club." We've worked very closely. There will always be noise around him, Simon. You know the nature of that beast. But he's a man that I believe has integrity. He's told the fan base he's going to be here, and he wants to get us re-promoted.
Mark, finally, you're looking forward to, and thanks for putting that straight to us. Are you looking forward to rubbing shoulders with Hollywood this upcoming season? You're going to be in amongst Wrexham. You're at Birmingham City on night one. You'll be meeting Big Tom Brady.
Yeah, look, from the accent, you'll know I was born and bred in the Midlands, 16 years at West Bromwich Albion, so it'll be nice to be back in the Midlands. I think, look, we've just got to be the very best versions of ourselves, let other people worry about how they want to conduct and be. We're very businesslike. You know, this is sanity for us. This is not vanity. We're building professional backroom staff, a professional football club who will work very hard. I think if we can be the very best versions of ourselves, we've got every opportunity to be competitive. And I want us going into this season with a hunter mentality, and I want us to attack the season.
Mark, good luck with the upcoming season. As always, we loved having you in here in the studio last time, and next time will be no exception. Please come in and join us when the season's up and running, when it suits you, and we'll have a chat again live on the show. Mark, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, guys. Nice to see you.
Good stuff. Mark Ashton with us, the chairman of Ipswich Town. When Mark left the studio the last time, I could tell that you and he...
very impressive. And, you know, you ask someone a question, you get an answer.
Yeah.
And he's very direct.
Yeah.
He is careful with his language, but direct enough to me and to imply the intent. He's a very, very, very good operator. Very good man. Operator.
Good luck to Ipswich. Good luck to all the clubs as he set out again. And it all kicks off, as far as the Championship is concerned, on Friday, August the 8th. It's Birmingham City against Mark Ashton's Ipswich Town. And it's live on talkSPORT at 8 o'clock.